Welcome to Chitty Chats. Today, my wonderful guest, which you have a huge piece of my heart, is Jim Sporleder. Thank you so much for taking time to join me today. Our paths have crossed a lot throughout my career, but really, I got to meet you in person a couple years ago when I was at the SDEC conference. So I'm so glad that you came and you're here with me today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. And I've always appreciated you and your friendship and appreciate your heart and passion to make a difference in other people's lives.
I think that's something we both share. I know that you're very passionate about this too. You are currently mostly retired. I know that you're doing some consulting work, but I appreciate you getting on the call with me today because you do have a passion for kids. And I want to take our listeners down that journey of when did your passion for helping people, but especially kids, come into play for you? This has been decades long, I would imagine.
Yes. I would say the impact that kids had on my life that drove my passion to serve them was when I went to do my student teaching. I actually had the opportunity to student teach at the junior high school that I had attended, and the principal was still there. And when I had my meeting with him, and I was a jock, and all I wanted to do was just let me teach PE and coach, and I'll be happy. And my meeting with the principal, he shared with, we talked about my college years and athletic years. And then he shared with me about the student teaching. He said, I wouldn't be doing you a service if I just had you teach PE. I really feel that it's important that you have some classroom experience. And I literally died on the inside. I think I covered it the best I could from the outside, but I had struggled academically for so long that the thought of being in a classroom was just terrifying. And so I started letting him know that I had been doing a lot of volunteer work at the school, helping out with different sports when I wasn't playing, and how important I thought PE was, and how I knew that the staff and PE staff were really looking forward. I was trying to just manipulate my way out of it. And he just said, I'd be failing you if I didn't give you classroom experience. And then he asked me, how about math? And I thought inside, I was like, oh my God, no. It went from math to English, and then he threw out social studies. I thought, of all of them, I better take social studies. So I told him I'd do that. And so he says, let's go meet the teacher. And as we were walking down, it was in California, the outside hallway, he turned to me and he said, did I mention to you that the social studies class is actually special ed? And
Oh gosh.
my first feeling there was, oh God, not those kids. And because when I was going through school, special ed was always the crazy kids that were out in the trailers at the back of the school property. They were
Mhm.
isolated. So we go in and open the door, and the teacher's jumping over a table to break up a fight. And I'm just like, what am I getting into? But I would say within 3 weeks, fell in love with those kids. Yeah. And I actually, the planning period I had and stuff, I went to the special ed room, and it's like I couldn't get enough of it, and
Mm.
started building relationships with those kids and seeing their struggles. And in PE, I was bored to death. And so I was fortunate enough that when I graduated from college, that there was a huge need for special ed teachers. And so I was able to get hired in the district that I grew up in. And I went back and got my special ed degree. And those special ed kids, huge impact on me. And so that really drove my passion. And then I was encouraged to go into administration, which I said I would never do, and ended up doing that. And my audience of kids grew considerably, and always was pulled to the kids that were struggling. And that kind of set my career.
Yeah, and you've been, gosh, in education now for so long. Do you know how long?
I was thinking about that other that if I included my consultant years, I'm about 41 years, I think 42.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about this as I was getting ready to have our conversation today. I've been in this trauma-informed lens now for about 20 years, been working with kids for 25, and you've been a pioneer. And I know you've been in this world so long, and I just keep thinking how much has changed in 20 years. I can imagine how much has changed in 40 years and how much more work we still have to do. Do you feel that way?
Absolutely. I have the privilege that I'm actually been working the last 2 years in a school district in California. I'm in district 4 days a month. It keeps me in the game. And it's a very unique position in that we started with transportation. First school district that I've ever come aware of where they said we want our bus drivers trained first. It's a huge district. We've got 50 buses, 22 schools, and 33,000 kids. And
Wow.
so looks like we may be going for another 2 years. We're waiting to hear, but just that connection helps keep me in the game a little bit. You probably would have a greater sense than me getting around more, but my gut tells me that after COVID hit, that it was a gut punch to the movement. And with the
Absolutely.
movement, all of our colleagues that you and I know that were full-time consultants, pretty much all have gone back and are either building administrators or so. And I also feel with the times we're in, I think I feel like things are somewhat disrupted. So my gut level. And so it's because I'm not out there and not able to really have in-depth conversations with our colleagues. It's just my gut level feeling. But I feel trauma responsive practices are needed now more than ever. And I feel like paper tigers is more relevant today than when it came out. Yet
Yeah.
it's a forgotten tool.
Yeah.
My heart goes out because I think a lot of our kids, I think we've just seen that cumulative model.
Yeah.
So,
2 things that you mentioned. 1, Paper Tigers, which I think is how a lot of people know you because you became a movie star overnight in this documentary that's been out now for, gosh, 16 years or
just
11
10 year,
years.
10 year, 10 year
Yes.
anniversary this year.
Okay, 10 years. And I just had a district come to me this year and say, "We haven't watched Paper Tigers for a long time, and we have a lot of new teachers, and I think it's a good way to introduce it." And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And we had a whole community event. And so I want you to know it's timeless. I've watched that a million times when it came out, and I hadn't watched it for several years, and I watched it again and I thought, "Yeah, it's timeless." There's so many messages around relationships, focusing on the bottom needs, right? Their basic needs. You can't help a kid at school if the kid never gets to school. You can't build relationship. And it lends to this piece of what you're saying around starting with transportation. I would imagine 20 years ago, you'd never even had thought about, oh, we should start with bus drivers. We should start with the people who are taking the kids in the morning and after school. And I would imagine in your journey, that's a very interesting, a different lens. What do you think about
When I got to Lincoln, transportation wouldn't even pick the kids up. So
Yeah.
they gave them city bus passes. And as we finally were able to get the culture changed around, the bus drivers competed as to who got to take us. If our kids were going on a field trip, and we started an athletic program, and
Mhm.
bus drivers loved transporting our kids. Our kids would thank them and greet them, and so that was cool to watch. One thing that I've been able, I always knew the research about the brain develops clear up to age 25, and all my Lincoln kids have a pretty pretty big following on Facebook with my kids. And over the years, I've seen some of them that have really struggled. And all of a sudden, they turn things around. And I just kind of learned to go into their Facebook and to figure out what their age was. And I'll be darned if for those that made those transitions, it was right there at 22, 26,
Yeah.
which really validated the science for me. Mm.
Well, and what a little to me, we celebrate the wins whenever we can find the wins because this work is really hard. And so I have to remind the people I work with a lot to say, you may not see the wins in the classroom today. You may see them a decade from now when you're on Facebook and they're married with their own child or whatever that looks like. And it sounds like those were wins for you.
Yeah, I've been able to watch many of them grow up, have families. Obviously, there's some that are still struggling,
Sure.
but I've just been blown away with how many have made that switch
Yeah.
and are on their feet, being productive.
Love that. I love that. What's it been like for these 4 days a month that you're hanging out with transportation and you're in California? What have you been teaching them? Are you riding buses with them? Are you talking about regulation in the morning, in the afternoon? What does that look like for you?
Started out, we were riding different routes. I'll tell you that was a big eye opener for me. We were picking up kids that made my gut just churn at places that we were stopping. Haven't seen that kind of poverty in my career. I haven't seen that depth of poverty.
Wow.
And then I've been there long enough to know that a lot of violence, a very strong gang presence in the community. Bus drivers tend to be forgotten about, and we had the opportunity to try to help them with changing their approach with kids.
Sure.
And after the first year we were there and we were going to be done, the day before we were going to go home, they had a massive blow up at a school over a bus situation. And they called us and asked us to come over. And it was the first time I was able to really see the discipline part of their systems. It was
Mm,
just a mess. It was really a no brainer to fix. And so we validated the administrators of their frustration. And then we also shared the system is not effective. You would probably like this and this, which they said absolutely. And so we revamped their behavior citations. And this last year, we've implemented into 5 different schools, and we've seen some pretty cool results.
love
And
that.
bus drivers are taking more ownership.
Yeah.
This following year, and if we go back, they're going full implementation into all 22 schools.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. One of the things I love about Paper Tigers is the home visit part. And we've
Yeah.
talked a lot about home visits in this field, talk a lot about the importance of getting into people's homes, looking at that. But I think you're really speaking to also riding the bus route, seeing where are these kids getting picked up? Where are they coming from? How are they getting to the bus? How are they getting off the bus? Where are they going home from? How long are they on the bus? All of that contributes to a student's day. And it's often how they start their day, right?
Yeah. One school that falls into that area that I was talking about, uh, the bus driver, when she when we went to pick the kids up, so parents would be there because we'd have some young kindergarten and first, second graders. And she'd greet the parents when she'd open the door, greet the parents, greet the kids. Kids would greet her. She When she dropped them off at school, they all said thank you. And about the third time I rolled that route, I asked her, I said, "Man, how are you connecting with these kids?" I said, "You do an amazing job of interacting." And she just turned to me and she says, "I am one of these kids." And she says, "I grew up there." and it's the worst area that I've ever seen for that kids were coming out of to get catch the bus, and she just said that's where I grew up.
Wow.
And so here it goes back to that. That those who get it and see the results, and those who don't are still hold on to that traditional punitive mold that we're trying to get a mind shift away from that.
Yeah, I love that. One of the questions that I like to ask my veterans, which you're one of, is how does this work impact your personal life? I know you have a beautiful family, grandkids. Do you feel like you're living trauma restorative practices at home also? Like you're focusing on relationships and you're repairing and you're holding big feelings for your family? Or do you feel like it's just a hat you wore when you were full time in school? It's just your consultant hat? Or do you feel like it's just who you are?
That's a great question, Stacy. I call my theme's always been the power of one. If you understand the power of just one caring adult relationship and the impact that it can have, then you want to be that person. And
Mhm.
for me, just with my experience at Lincoln, I wanted to be that person and it changed who I was. It's who I am, not just in my interaction with kids. It's who I am when my interaction with a waitress where I'm getting a meal. It's my interactions with the hotel personnel. It's I just know what the power of a positive conversation, a positive comment. We got to know this one waitress at one of the hotels that we were staying at before flying home, and we got to know her well enough. One time when we were having dinner there, she was pretty emotional, and we asked her what was going on, and she shared that for some reason, her hours were getting cut. She had bills to pay. And things were really tough, and my partner and I just gave her a pretty good tip, just something simple that we could
Sure.
do. And she caught us before we went out the door, and she was all in tears, and she just said, "Nobody's done that, has ever done that for me. You don't know how much this means to me." And I don't say it to be trying to get attention, you know what I'm saying? But being able to have those opportunities, I never saw her again. And I write notes to whoever's cleaning my room, thanking them for the clean room and stuff. And I've just noticed over the years, and the research tells us that those kinds of comments can have huge impact that we'll never know, and we don't have to know. But I just feel compelled to treat people in that manner that they're an opportunity. I don't know what kind of day they're having, but bring some kind of sunshine. It could have impact.
I love that. And some people may focus on, oh, you gave her a tip and it helped her. But what I focus on is you had enough repetitions with this woman to know that day in an attuned, empathetic way that she was having a bad day. And you took the time to ask her. And my guess is you didn't even have to have all the repetitions to have an attuned conversation. You could have just had that without all those repetitions because you're a caring person. And I think one of the challenges I have in this work is when I start to work a lot with educators, they think that we're just teaching strategies. And it's so much more than that. It
Mhm.
really is about the relationship. It's about a shift. It's about showing up for the humankind. And I know that sounds weighty, but I think that's for me, that's when you say passion, that's what I feel from you every time I talk to you is there's this deep sense of humankind that we're here on this planet to take care of. And some of us are taking care of the people who've been through hard things because not everybody can walk that walk and be in the trenches with that. But for you, when I feel that passion come from you, Jim, it's about taking care of the human race. And I love that about you.
I think when we have those interactions, maybe we're more blessed than they are because of who they are. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? To me,
reciprocal, right? You're getting something
Yeah,
from that too. They're not just getting something from that.
right.
Yeah. The human experience. I love that. What would you say to new educators? Because we know your guts are right. It's hard to be in education right now. They're not getting a lot of support federally, statewide. You know this. I always have said educators are some of the strongest people I know because everyone has an opinion about education. And most of those people with the opinion have not actually been educated in education, right? They don't have an educational degree. They're not there to teach. So, what would you say to new people coming into the field? What kind of pep talk would you give?
Well, that's a deep question.
I'm a deep
It's
person, Jim.
it's first off, I guess through my experience, through all 10 years when I was doing traveling full time, I finally learned that going into a district and doing the one and done,
Mm,
you could only pray that you hit some hearts to create the change,
yeah.
which you never had the chance to go back. And so to have a conversation with a educator now, just the term trauma responsive, well, so many people don't have a clue of where when you and I were out on the road full time, trauma responsive, everybody knew something about it.
Yeah.
So new educators, I try to point out the power of one.
Yeah.
If I'm able to have those conversations, is the power of a caring adult relationship and how much that can impact a student's life. And what a wonderful opportunity to be that person that can provide that nurturing and care and validation.
Love that. One of the things we talked a little bit about earlier was just also the power of one and its longevity. I know for me, I have clients who I started seeing when they were little kids and now they're grown up with children. And I'm sure the same is for you. And you're still rooting for them, showing up for them. I bet some of them even reach out to you sometimes.
I just had lunch with a young man about a month ago who reached out to me, and I got to know him as a sixth grader when I was a middle school principal. He lived
Hmm.
across the street, and I'd let him come over during the summertime, the soccer ball around in the gym and what have you. And but as he grew, he got very involved in the gangs to the point that his home was one of the strongholds in our community for
Mm.
18th Street gang. And I had to be tough on him. And he reached out to me here just some weeks back here and wanted to thank me for being one of the nice people in his life. And I'm thinking, wow, because when the time I was dealing with him, I hadn't learned anything about the trauma, and I was pretty hard nosed when it came to gang type stuff. But gosh, I just had a wonderful lunch with him. We've met a second time. Those experiences to me are priceless.
Yeah.
And then I had a girl reach out to me on Facebook, and I remembered her, and she was always a sweet kid, a little bit unkept, but that's what I just remember a little bit feeble, unkept, but a sweetheart kid. And just out of the blue, I get a message from her saying, and now she's a mother of three, but
Wow.
she just that she says, Sporleder, I never told anybody, but my mom used to beat me when I got home from school. This is in high school. She would hit me with her fist, and it was always before dinner. And then she'd kick me out of the house. And she said, the only place I felt safe was is that I would go to Lincoln and I would sleep behind the shrubs in front of the gym. And I thought, my God, the shrubs in front of the gym were only maybe 30 feet from the sidewalk. And here she spent, and then she said she'd get up and go in. The custodian got there pretty early, and she'd go in the girls' bathroom and try to clean up. But she just wanted me to know that Lincoln was her safe spot. And who would have known?
What I was saying is, I think the coolest for me, the biggest honor and probably the coolest part of this work is the holding of stories for our
Mm.
people who've been through so many things. And when you stay in this work long enough and you really focus on relationship and the power of one, you get to see those play out over sometimes decades, which is wild. Right. When I was
Mhm.
doing this, I was like, there's no way. There's no way I'm going to know this kid for 20 years or 30 years or whatever. And here we are knowing kids for 20, 30, 40 years. And so I just think you've been such a pioneer in teaching us how to do that. And I can only imagine the amount of stories that you have witnessed and held for those kids.
It's the kids that drive the mission and the passion.
Yeah.
The I feel incredibly blessed, and I don't know so much as what I've done, other than I know that the relationship it draws connection. But the kids have helped make me be who I am today.
Thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. I know you're a busy guy doing what you do. And I want you to remember never underestimate the power of your impact. You've had this long career and you're in this beautiful season of life that you get to enjoy taking care of yourself and your family and enjoying your life. And don't feel bad about that. But we appreciate the work you've done to lead the way for all of us.
It means a lot coming from you, Stacy, because I value our friendship so much. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Jim. Have a great day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.